So I think I'm going to start. My name is Peg Bartel, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Deepening. L.J. Milone is one of our favorite speakers. He's been doing a series on the classics, on the mystics for us for, well, I don't know, this is the fourth year, I think.
I think so.
And they're always wonderful, and there is such a deepening of understanding of our own tradition. So that's been really beautiful for me. So LJ is Director of Christian Formation at the Cathedral here in Washington, D.C., St. Matthew's. And he's also, you're still head of the Contemplative Society?
Actually, no, not anymore.
No, actually, no. Well, see, he's freed up a little bit, but he's very active.
I'm retired.
In the Contemplative Society. So last year when he was with us, we did St. Francis, and I think we kind of settled on Anthony DeMello. I think because I was asking him, how do you love deeply and let go at the same time? So I'm hopeful that this will answer part of that question, although I must say that St. Francis answered part of that for me anyway as well. So I'm going to shut up now because I really want to hear LJ. And then we'll talk later at the towards the end. We will go into breakout groups, and they will appear on your in the chat box when we get closer to the end, because we like to have an opportunity to be able to share with each other where we're at. So, LJ, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Peg, and thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for inviting me back. I always love coming and talking to the group out of the Spiritual Center at St. Aidan's. So what I'd like to do is share my screen. And we're going to learn about tonight Anthony DeMello. So I titled this program Happiness Now because he was very concerned, he being Tony DeMello. I don't think anybody called him Anthony. I think everybody called him Tony. Tony was most concerned with happiness right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to begin with a recording. So Tony has been recorded. He died in the late 80s, and a number of his retreats were recorded. The last one that he gave in America, because he gave retreats all over the world, the last one he gave in America was recorded a few months before he died. And unfortunately, only the audio was captured and not the video. But we do have the audio, and that I'd like to share with you right now. It's a lot of screen hopping tonight. Let me make sure the sound is on. 1 second. Okay, it's on.
This is Audible.
Pardon the introduction.
The Center for Spiritual Exchange presents Awareness, Conversations with the Masters by Anthony DeMello, read by the author. Chapter 1, On Waking Up.
Spirituality means waking up. Most people, even though they don't know it, are asleep. They're born asleep, they live asleep, they marry in their sleep, they breed children in their sleep, and they die in their sleep without ever waking up. They never understand the loveliness and the beauty of this thing that we call human existence. You know, all mystics, Catholic, Christian, non-Christian, they're all unanimous, no matter what their theology, no matter what their religion, they're all unanimous on one thing. And that one thing is, all is well. All is well. Everything's in a mess. And all is well. Strange paradox. But tragically, most people never get to see that. They never get to see that all is well because they're asleep. They're in a nightmare. You know, talking about sleeping reminds me, last year on Spanish television, I saw a nice little story. There's this elderly gentleman who knocks at the door of his son, who's fast asleep. He says, "Jaime, wake up." And Jaime says, "I don't want to get up, Papa." And the old man says, "Get up, you've got to go to school." And Jaime says, "I don't want to go to school." "Why not?" says the old man. "Because first, it's so dull. Second, the kids all tease me. And third, I hate school." So the old man says, "I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you must go to school. First, because it is your duty. Second, because you're 45 years old. And third, because you're the headmaster. Gotta go to school. So, wake up, wake up. You're grown up. You're too big to be asleep. Wake up. Stop playing with your toys. Most people tell you that they want to get out of kindergarten, but don't believe them. Don't believe them. All they want for you to do is to mend their broken toys. Give me back my wife. Give me back my job. Give me back my money. Give me back my reputation, my success. This is what they want. They want their toys repaired. That's all. Now, even the best psychologists will tell you that. They'll tell you people don't really want to be cured. What they want is relief. A cure is painful. Waking up is unpleasant, you know. You're nice and comfortable in bed, and at least as long as you're asleep, it's irritating to be woken up. That's the reason why I told you the wise guru will not attempt to wake people up. I hope I'm going to be wise these days and make no attempt whatsoever to wake you up if you're asleep. None of my business. My business is to do my thing, to dance my dance. If you profit from it, fine. If you don't, too bad. As the Arabs say, the nature of the rain is the same, but it grows thorns in the marshes and flowers in the garden.
So you can see right there, Tony was a pleasure to be around, and he was rather free. So let's expand on that a little bit. Here's a little bit about Tony himself. He was born on September 4th, 1931, in Santa Cruz, which is a suburb of Mumbai. At the time, I believe it was called Bombay. He was a Jesuit priest and a psychotherapist. And he became a Jesuit in India, and he came to Chicago to become a psychotherapist in the 60s, I believe. And after a deeper immersion, when he was already a Jesuit priest, he did a deeper immersion in poverty and prayer, and he got in contact with some of the Indian sages, the Hindu sages that were popular in the 50s, 60s, 70s. He started to experience a change. Beforehand, he was actually a kind of rigid, traditional Catholic, and traditional not in a very good sense. I mean, he was proud of being Catholic, but he was a little closed off and very narrow in how he viewed religion. But then he becomes more free. He becomes less and less rigid. He becomes more open. And what changed him is what really we're going to talk about tonight, because it's what he has to offer all of us. So he changes, and then he starts giving seminars, workshops, retreats, spirituality teachings in India and across the globe. And he doesn't just give these spiritual workshops or seminars or retreats. He doesn't give them only to Catholics. He doesn't give them only to Christians. In one of the retreats that was recorded, he mentions how he would talk to other audiences, Hindus and Muslims. And I have to assume that would be the case living in India, where there's a smorgasbord of religious beliefs and religious communities. And I mentioned two of his retreats were recorded. I think a third was actually recorded, but these are the two that are probably the most popular, one on video and one on audio. And you just listen to the opening of the audio retreat. They turned it into a book. The book is called Awareness. The retreat was called Waking Up to Life. And that was the one he gave in probably I think it was 1987 or 88. And he gave that at, I think he gave it at Fordham University in New York. And then I believe a few months later, he died. Because he died in either 87 or 88, I can't quite remember. And then he also gave a satellite retreat for the Catholic campus ministries of all the Jesuit universities in America. And that's one we're going to watch a little bit later tonight. And that one's called A Rediscovery of Life. So even just from listening to him, he's not going to talk to us about traditional religious themes. He's going to go deeper and actually talk in a more expansive way at the same time. The essence of his teaching is actually quite simple to communicate. And to do that, I'm actually going to play just 2 more minutes of the audio recording, because I think my purpose here these next few Monday nights is really to expose you to him as much as I can, and then give you some context and have us get time to talk about it in groups and in large groups. So let me bring up again the audio recording. And this will just be for 2 minutes, because this will give you the essence of his teaching.
Chapter 19, How Happiness Happens.
Self-observation is so delightful. It's an extraordinary thing. After a while, you don't have to make an effort, because as illusion begins to crumble and you begin to know this thing that cannot be described called happiness, everything changes. You become addicted to awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness. There's a story of the disciple who goes to the master and he says, "Give me a word of wisdom that would guide me through my days." It was the master's day of silence. So he picked a pad and wrote one word, awareness, and gave it to the traveler. When the traveler saw that, he said, "But this is too brief. Could you expand on it a bit?" And the master took the pad back pleasantly and wrote, awareness, awareness, awareness. He said, "Yes, but what does it mean?" And the master took the pad back and wrote, awareness, awareness, awareness means awareness. That's what it means. Watch yourself. No one can show you how to do it, because he would be giving you a technique. He'd be programming you. But watch yourself. You had a reaction this morning when you were talking to someone. Were you aware of it? Were you not identifying with it? You got angry with somebody. You were aware that you were angry?
So let's stop there and talk about what he just said. Awareness, awareness, awareness. That's the essence of his teaching. That you are aware of what's going on inside of you. You're aware, for instance, as he was saying, of your reaction to somebody you encountered this morning or this afternoon or right now. What is going on inside you? What are the feelings that are coming out? What's simmering under the surface? He wants you to be aware of what's going on inside you and let that open you up to a deeper awareness that he would call silence. So awareness means being aware of what's going on inside you and simply being aware. Some spiritual teachers call it, I think, pure consciousness. Interior silence is maybe another word for it. I wonder, this is just me thinking out loud, I wonder if it's maybe what Jesus meant by faith. Just a wonder. I don't know. Food for thought. So that's the essence of his teaching, awareness. Let's unpack that a little bit more. So awareness, awareness, awareness means silence within, and it means seeing not just our feelings, but our attachments and seeing them without judgment. Attachment is a big theme for Tony DeMello. He says, really, I can't tell you how to be happy because happiness is already within you. And he says very forthrightly, you do not need anything or anyone to be happy, to be unconditionally happy. He says, all I can do is help you to see your attachments. And, I wonder if he wasn't the first person to say this sentence. We see things and people not as we are. No, excuse me. We see things and people not as they are, but as we are. Or as I wrote there, we see things as we are, not as they are. Does that make sense? Let me say that a different way. We see things and people through our own filters, through our own perceptions of, through our own attitudes, through our own beliefs, through you could say we were looking out at reality from a room and all the windows are our attachments, our prejudgments, our ideas of what a happy life means. In essence, we don't see reality as it truly is. We see through the glasses of illusion. And what are these illusions that Anthony DeMello talks about? Because he talks about really the same thing again and again. And it's amazing how he talks about just a little bit of teaching in so many different ways, because it's a really deep teaching. It's a really expansive teaching, but he says himself, I can give it to you in about 3 minutes. And I just gave it to you basically in about 3 minutes. That's the whole of it. But he expands on what are some of these illusions? What are some of these ideas, this programming that we have, that we got as we grew up in our societies? We picked it up from our culture. We picked it up from our families. One of the ideas is you cannot be happy without the things you are attached to and that we consider so precious. In fact, that might be the basic attachment. Whatever it is, I think I need to be happy. That's worth thinking about for a little while, sitting in silence and posing that question to ourselves. What do I think I need to be happy? And maybe just right now, let that question kind of flow through your mind and let your mind come to rest on those things that pop up. And you don't need to go abstract like control, or another thing might be, I need security. No, be concrete. What is it I really need to be happy? What do I think I need to be happy? What comes to mind for me, I think I need money. Maybe not $1 million, but I need a certain level of money. I need certain clothes. I need video games. I need books. I need spirituality seminars. I need to listen to Tony DeMello. It can get as spiritual as that. It can be kind of a spiritual consumerism at some point. It can also be something totally unrelated. I need a good cup of coffee in the morning to be happy. So fill in the blank for yourselves. But he continues because he is convinced that we have a number of illusions about happiness. And one of them is happiness is in the future. Let me just get there. I know I'm here right now, but once I get there, then I'll be happy. There could be a new job, maybe a new marriage. It could be, it could just be, I'm going to get past this red light. I'm just going to get through this meeting and then I'll be happy. Another illusion. Happiness will come. This is a great one. This is the third bullet point here. Happiness will come if you manage to change the situation you are in and the people around you. He just simply says, not true. And man, do we not, even as I say it, I chuckle, but I totally subscribe to this in practice. Happiness will come if I can change my situation. Here's a situation. I just took a new job a few months ago in DC, and I live in Columbia, Maryland. Well, it's about an hour to get down here on a good day. On a really good day, it's 45 minutes. Well, as I'm driving, my goal is always get here as fast as possible. And a situation I frequently want to change is all of the red lights in the district, all of the red light cameras in the district, and certainly all of the drivers in the district. And if I get here late, being late, that's another good attachment to be aware of. And yet another illusion. This is the fourth bullet point. If all your desires are fulfilled, then you'll be happy. Tony will talk about the way of spirituality, the way of waking up as a way of deprogramming, of dropping our desires, really dropping our attachments. Because desire is good. It's more the desires I think I need fulfilled. The ones that I'm pressing happiness into. If I don't get this, I won't be happy. If I can't change my wife, if I can't change my kids, I refuse to be happy. That's kind of what we tell ourselves. We don't say that obviously out loud or even in our minds, but in practice, in the way we approach reality and the way we inhabit the present moment, that is certainly how we all tend to act, right? Unless this person doesn't do this tiny change that I need, well, here's how I'll punish them. I will feel miserable about it. It's kind of like saying, and this is something I think Tony does say, and that even Richard Rohr sometimes says, it's like saying, okay, I'm going to go to a doctor because I feel sick. All right, I feel sick. And the doctor says, great, I'm going to give you a prescription for your neighbor. And you say, great, thanks so much, doc. That makes me feel a whole lot better. I'm going to make sure your neighbor gets the prescription, even though you're the one who's sick. And this is kind of normal human behavior. So Tony says, again, this is pretty much his teaching in a nutshell here. He says, understand your attachments and they will drop. Attachments can only thrive in the darkness of illusion. So we have to see them as they are. See them, and that's why he says without judgment, without guilt, without blame. Now you may have all of these feelings, but we just kind of let those feelings be. Because sometimes we can't really control the feeling, we ever really control the feelings coming into our consciousness. We have to just let them be and just see without kind of giving into our guilt, our judgment, our shame, our anger, letting all those feelings be there. And as Tony will say, not identifying with them. And then truly seeing our attachment. It's not so much about discovering where does this come from in kind of a psychotherapeutic way. Well, I really, this is a real attachment of mine. I feel upset when I'm late. So I feel free to feel free enough to share that with you, friends. So that's certainly one I have. And what happens to me when I get that way? I start to get anxious if I feel like some things, if I'm going to be late to something. I start to get maybe a little angry at other people. Okay, that's fine. See it. So I'm just simply looking at it, being aware of it, and the reactions that kind of flow with them, with this attachment. I'm not necessarily asking, why do I do that? You know, you can, that's fair spiritual work. But first and foremost, it's just seeing it. Because that in and of itself is to detach. It's like the first step and a major step in detachment, in dropping it, in letting go. That's really the opening of awareness, is simply to see, yeah, I tend to feel upset when I'm under the impression I'm going to be late. And maybe even naming some of the reactions. I tend to feel anxious or worried. I tend to feel a little angry or annoyed. Okay, that's good. And he says, stay there, stay in that awareness. And then not just seeing it, but just simply be aware. That's why I have this picture there, because it's it's kind of like what we talked about in years past with Meister Eckhart and Thomas Merton. Awareness, and this is me talking, Tony didn't really use this term too much. What he means by awareness is what I think others mean by contemplation. This kind of consciousness that is not restricted to something, whether a thought or a feeling, an impression, a sense, perception. It's just purely open. It's this open field. And in that field, you can see your own attachments, your own illusions. So Tony says, everywhere, people have actually built their lives on the unquestioned belief that without certain things, money, power, success, approval, that's a big one, right? Approval, a good reputation, love, friendship, spirituality, God. It gets pretty deep there pretty quick. Without certain things, they cannot be happy. And he always makes it personal. What is your particular combination? So here's a program he lays out in the retreat, Waking Up. Waking up requires letting go of our brainwashing, our presuppositions. It requires letting go of our belief system. And I don't mean by that the creed of Christianity. He doesn't mean that either. He means your kind of operative belief system as you go through the day. Your beliefs are basically your illusions, those things that you just assume about life. If we were to take this, and I think you very much can take this in the direction of racial justice, you can take this in so many different directions, or justice for women. I could look at it as a white man. I could look at it as one of the filters is clearly my privilege as a white person, and then my privilege as a man. So you can look at this, you can apply this, I think, very quickly and easily to today. And it's more than just opinions. It's more about, it's more than just opinions and what's the word? Opposite opinions. You know, it's more than arguing about a position. Because he says you have to drop all positions. It's about seeing through our beliefs by understanding them. And in understanding them, we can drop them. And let me be clear, understanding for Tony DeMello does not mean an intellectual grasping. It means you see it. And you see your own negative reactions that arise when, like for instance, maybe you had even if you agree with it, you know, the idea of white privilege, maybe you had a reaction when I even used that word. I know sometimes I do. Okay, watch your reactions. This is the way to freedom. to see our reactions, because in seeing them, again, we create a little distance, a little pause. And so next time when that programming goes again, it starts to go off, you can see it and catch it a little bit more quickly. So he says again, the root illusion, I think I need this or that to be happy. So keep that in mind. So here he gives you a 5-step process. And the first one's a doozy. First, admit that you really don't want to wake up. You'll hear him say, I believe we'll hear him say it tonight because we're going to watch a few minutes of it, one of his other retreats. I believe he'll say it in that retreat, your life is in a mess. Your life is in a mess. Admit it and move on from there. But the thing is, we kind of like this mess. We like this. We don't really want to be woken up. And you heard him say in that first audio selection, it's irritating to wake up. And I love this image because usually having 4 kids and I have toddlers, twin toddlers, I'm usually woken up in the morning in a rather rude fashion. So I can identify with this pretty well. I love how he says, it's like, imagine you're in a comfy, cozy bed, and it's, like it's been the past few weeks really cold outside, maybe in the teens, maybe a lot more. Maybe it's snowing out. Oh, don't you just love being in bed and it's snowing outside and you're nice and warm in your bed? Well, now imagine you're nice and warm in your bed and it's snowing outside and you're nice and asleep. Not only does someone wake you up, but they rip off the covers and they throw you outside into the snow. That's kind of what it is to wake up. Our illusions are like these just big comfy blankets we wrap around ourselves. And he doesn't really spend a whole lot of time, Tony, talking about where these illusions come from. He just takes them, this is the human condition. He just takes them as they are. Well, you could probably go into different, psychotherapeutic directions, psychological directions. Well, these are comfort blankets kind of to protect us. We've used to protect ourselves because of some trauma in the past, and they're likely understandable. So he doesn't really judge people for having them. He just says, look, if you want to wake up, if you want to be free and happy all the time, step 1, admit you don't want to wake up. Because we have gotten used to our attachments. We like them. And then he says, okay, let's suppose you've already admitted you don't want to wake up. Now, what's the next step? Become aware of the negative feelings inside. That's the first step in awareness. Just looking inside and seeing your emotions, seeing them as they are, without criticizing them, without judging. Okay, step 3. Understand the feelings are in you, but not in reality. He uses this example to emphasize this point. When you have a picnic and it rains, is the rain upset? Clearly not. And when you bump your knee against the table, where is the pain? It's in you. It's in me. It's not in reality. The table's fine. The rain is fine. In other words, reality is not the problem. Life is not the problem. It's what's going on up here. Step 4, and he doesn't elaborate on this too much, at least when he's talking about these 5 steps, but we're going to understand step 4 a lot more, I think, over the next few weeks. He says, stop identifying with the feeling. They pass. So let's take as an example, and certainly think of your own example, but for our purposes right now, let's think of a time we have gotten into an argument with somebody. And you know how that tends to stay with you? Maybe someone's yelled at you, you're trying to make a retort back, and you have all these different feelings inside, and let's say you've already had the argument and then it's the next day, or maybe even a few hours later, and you still kind of have these feelings with you. You feel upset. Maybe you feel angry. Maybe you feel hurt. You know how we can have all these different feelings at the same time. Maybe you feel confused. Maybe you feel worried. He would say, okay, become aware of what's going on inside you. See that they're in you. That, in other words, I'm my own problem. It's not reality that's the problem. It's what's going on up here. And now, let them be. The anger, the upset, the worry, whatever it is, it will pass. In a sense, it's about being patient. Letting it be, seeing it, feeling it. Sometimes it's helpful to just locate it in your body and just not really engage it, not really do anything with it. In a sense, we kind of have to just suffer our feelings sometimes. And Anthony DeMello is saying, if we don't do that, we will identify with it. And we give the game away when we say things like, I am angry, I am annoyed, I am scared. And he'll say, you are not scared, you feel scared. And that's a big difference, and it gives the game away. I am is a statement of identity. So in a moment, we're often identifying fully with our feelings. And the feeling is kind of taking charge of our lives for a few moments and saying things that we might not normally say. So his advice, stop identifying with the feeling. Let it pass. And step 5, he says, understand this means that you have to change rather than changing reality. It's not about you rearranging your life, your situation. It's about changing here first. And when you do, everything does change. So, before we watch a little bit of Tony DeMello, I'd like to practice a little bit of awareness with you. So we'll practice a little bit of awareness just for a few moments. We'll watch a little bit of Tony from one of his retreats, and then I'm going to send you right into some small groups and have you talk amongst yourselves. And then I'll bring you back to the large group, and we can wrap up tonight with a large group sharing. Okay? All right. So I invite you to sit back in your chairs. Sit comfortably, sit as you want. You can keep your eyes open, you can keep your eyes closed. In a sense, I really can't lead you into this. This is your own work. So whenever you have a moment, take a deep breath and see, look at, become aware of what's going on inside you right now. Root yourself in this present moment. Just be open and aware. And start to look at your attachments. See them without judgment. What's coming to mind for you? You can list them, you can stay with just one, but become aware of them. Which one of the illusions did you identify with the most? Which one maybe has the most energy for you right now? And see it. And see the feelings that come up around it. See your attachment and see the feelings that come up around it. And take a deep breath. And come back to being aware in purity. Purely open, purely aware. Not aware of anything in particular. Just be here, now. Conscious, open. And take a big, deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes. What helps me become aware is my breath. And that can be a really good device, in a sense, to help you settle down into the present moment and simply become aware. Because we're talking here about kind of two different ways of being aware. And the first way is simply just awareness. That's the foundation. It's this open field. It's just being. But then while you're just being open and aware, looking at and becoming aware of different attachments and feelings that are going on inside. Okay. Good practice. We're going to be doing that every week, and I recommend you do that every day. It was said that Tony would do it for hours a day. So now what I'd like to share with you is Tony's retreat. It's the satellite retreat he did, I believe it was 1987. I think he died in 1988. I have to check that out, and I'll get back to you. Maybe while you're in small groups, I'll look that up real quick. But this is a retreat he gave to a number of Jesuit universities at the same time. I don't know if this had been done before. He was recorded live. It was like in a live studio audience, and he had a live retreat audience in front of him. But then at different centers throughout the country, like a Jesuit university on the West Coast, a Jesuit university in the Midwest, and Tony was in Fordham. So they would all be watching Tony at the same time. So this is the very beginning of the retreat, and we're going to watch about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so get comfortable. He's very entertaining. And again, he's not going to tell you much more than what I just said, but it's so much better, I think, to hear it from him.
Where I think this is going to be more in the nature of a kind of a dialogue. I discovered something 10, 12 years ago, and it turned my life upside down, revolutionized my life. I became a new man. So this is what I'm going to share with you. Happy to share it with you in a special kind of way, though, because you might say to me, how come you heard this just 10 or 12 years ago? Hadn't you read the Gospels? Of course I'd read the Gospels, but I hadn't seen it. It was right there, but I hadn't seen it. Later, having discovered it, see, I found it in all the major religious writings. And I'm amazed. I mean, I was reading it, and I hadn't recognized it, hadn't seen it. I wish to God I'd found this when I was younger, like most of you. Oh, what a difference it would have made. So how long would it take to give it to you? A whole day? Well, I'll be honest with you, a couple of minutes. I don't think it would take more than 2 minutes. Giving it to you wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes, I don't think. Grasping it or getting it might take you 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 10 minutes, 1 day, 3 days, who knows? Who knows? That depends on you. If you would bring one quality to this little session we're having here together today, just one. You need one quality to see what I sort of saw 10 years ago and what revolutionized my life. Various people have told me since then that their lives were pretty much revolutionized too. But not too many people, I'm sorry to say, very few. I tend to think that if about, let's say, 1,000 people are listening to me and one hears it, that's a pretty good average, pretty good average. Is it difficult to hear? Is it difficult to understand? It's so simple, a 7-year-old child could understand it. Isn't that amazing? And in fact, when I think of it today, I think, why didn't I see it? I don't know. I don't know why I didn't see it, but I didn't. Now, maybe one or other of you might see it today or might see part of it. What would you need to see it? Just one thing, the ability to listen. That's all. Are you able to listen? If you can, you might get it. Now, listening is not as easy as you might think it is. Reason. We're always listening from kind of fixed concepts, fixed positions, prejudices. See, listening does not mean swallowing. That's gullibility. Oh, he says it, so I take it. I don't want any of you to have any spirit of faith while you're listening to me. I mean, you could take what the church teaches on faith. You could take the Bible on faith, etc. Don't take me on faith. What I want you to do is question everything I'm saying, think about it, come back at me. Feel free to do that. See, even while I'm talking, ask questions, raise your hands anytime. I'd be happy to do this kind of dialogue with you. So it does not mean gullibility, but then listening doesn't mean attacking, see, because I'm going to say something so new, some of you are going to think I'm crazy, I'm out of my mind. So then you're going to be tempted to attack. If you tell a Marxist there's something wrong with Marxism, the first thing he's likely to do is attack you. You tell a capitalist there's something wrong with capitalism, he's up in arms. You tell an American, hey, you know, there's something wrong with the United States. And the same with the Indian, if you're attacking India, etc. Doesn't mean swallowing, doesn't mean attacking, doesn't mean agreeing. They tell me about a Jesuit superior who was a great success, see. So somebody said to him, how come you're such a great success as a superior? He says, very simple. The formula is simple. I agree with everyone. I just agree with everyone. They said, don't be absurd. How could you be a successful superior agreeing with everybody? He says, that's right. How could I be a successful superior agreeing with everybody? So it doesn't mean agreeing with me. You could disagree with me and get it. Isn't that amazing? It means being alert. You're alert, you're watching, you're listening with a kind of a fresh mind. That's not easy either. Listening with a fresh mind, without prejudices, without fixed formulas. See, like just yesterday somebody told me the story of the guy who was told that, you know, the famous saying, you have an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, this guy was having an affair with the doctor's wife and was eating an apple a day. So, no, he got it all wrong. He got it all wrong. He was from a fixed formula, see, a fixed position. They tell me of a priest who was sort of trying to convince an alcoholic parishioner that he ought to give up drink. So he gets a glass of alcohol, pure alcohol, and he gets hold of a bug, a worm, and he drops it into the glass. And the poor worm begins to wriggle and dies. And he says to the parishioner, you got the message, John? John said, yeah, Father, I got the message. I got the message. You know, you got a bug in your stomach, alcohol's the thing to take. Say, oh, God, he got the message, yes. John wasn't listening, see? He wasn't listening. Well, I know a case where Father wasn't listening either, because they tell of the alcoholic who goes to the parish priest. The parish priest was reading the newspaper, didn't want to be disturbed. He said, excuse me, Father. Father was irritated. He ignored him. Excuse me, Father. Father says, what is it? He said, could you tell me what causes arthritis, Father? Father was irritated. What causes arthritis? He says, drinking causes arthritis. That's what causes arthritis. Going about with loose women causes arthritis. That's what causes arthritis. Gambling causes arthritis. That's what causes arthritis. Why did you ask? He says, because it says in the paper here that the Holy Father has arthritis. Father wasn't listening, see? So, okay. All right. If you are ready to hear something new, simple, new, unexpected, against almost everything you've been told till now, ready to hear that? Then maybe you'll hear what I have to say. Maybe you'll get it. You know, when Jesus taught the good news, I think he was attacked not only because what he taught was good, but because it was new. We hate anything new. I hated anything new. I don't want to hear anything new. Give me the old stuff. We don't like the new. It's too disturbing, too liberating. Okay, so the ability to listen. Buddha formulated it beautifully. He says, monks and scholars must accept my words not out of respect, must not accept my words out of respect, but must analyze them the way a goldsmith analyzes gold, by cutting, scraping, rubbing, melting. You must not accept my words out of respect, but analyze them by cutting, the way the goldsmith analyzes gold, see? Cutting, scraping, rubbing, melting. Okay, so we've got that clear. Next, the theme of today, we said the rediscovery of life. So let's begin the investigation. Let's begin the research. And then I'll get you even to talk to one another and share views, etc. Okay? So let's start. Life. What's this thing we call life? Take a look at the world, and then I'll invite you to take a look at your own life. Take a look at the world. Poverty everywhere. I read in the New York Times yesterday that the bishops of the United States claim that there are 33 million people in the United States who are living below the poverty line drawn by the government itself. If you think that is poverty, you ought to come to other countries and see the squalor, the dirt, the misery. You call that life? Well, I've got news for you. I'll show you life even there. About 12 years ago, a little more, I was introduced to a rickshaw puller in Calcutta. You know what a rickshaw is? The guy who, it's awful. I mean, a human being, you don't have a horse pulling you, but you've got a human being pulling you. The lifespan of these poor men is from 10 to 12 years once they begin pulling the rickshaw. They don't last very long. They get tuberculosis, see. Now, Ramchandra was his name. Ramchandra had TB. At that time, there was a little group of people engaging in an illegal activity called exporting skeletons. The government eventually caught on to them. But you know what they did? They sort of bought your skeleton while you were alive. If you were very poor, you went to them and you sold your skeleton for the equivalent about $10. And so they'd say to you, many of these rickshaw pullers, they'd say, how long have you been working in this trade? And Ramchandra says, 10 years. And they think, he doesn't have much longer to live. All right, here's your money. Then the moment you die, they pounce on the body, they take it away. And then when the body is decomposed through some process they have, they get hold of the skeleton. Well, Ramchandra had sold his skeleton. That's how miserable he was. And so on and on. He had a wife, he had kids, and the squalor, the poverty, the misery, the uncertainty. You'd never think to find happiness there, right? One day I said to this guy, nothing seemed to faze him. He was all right. Nothing seemed to upset him. I said to him, aren't you upset? He said, about what? You know, your future, the future of the kids. He says, well, I'm doing the best I can, but the rest is in the hands of God. I said, hey, but what about your sickness? That causes suffering, doesn't it? He says, a bit. We got to take life as it comes. I never once saw him in a bad mood. Well, one day when I was talking to this guy, I suddenly realized I was in the presence of a mystic. I suddenly realized I was in the presence of life. It was right there. He was alive. I was dead. You know, a person, a man who reincarnated in himself, those lovely words of Jesus, look at the birds of the air. Look at the flowers of the field. They don't sow, they don't spin. They don't have a moment of anxiety for the future, not like you. It was right here. I know he must be dead by now. You know, I met him very briefly there in Calcutta and then went on to where I live now, further south in India. What happened to this guy, I don't know. But I know I'd met a mystic, extraordinary person. He discovered life, rediscovered, discovered. How come we haven't found the answer to that? We've made all kinds of technological advances. Has that raised the quality of our living by 1 inch? Want to know my opinion? No, not 1 inch. Oh, we have more comfort, more speed, pleasures, entertainments, that's right, more erudition, greater technological advances. What I'm saying is, any improvement on that loneliness and emptiness and heartache, any improvement on that greed and hatred and conflict, less fighting, less cruelty? If you want my opinion, I think it's worse. And the tragedy is, as I discovered 10 or 12 years ago, the secret has been found. They discovered the atom. We don't have to go in search of solving it. We got the solution. Why don't we use it? We don't want it. That's why. Would you believe that? We don't want it. We don't want it. Can you imagine my saying to somebody, look, I'm going to give you a formula which would make you happy for the rest of your life. You'll enjoy every single minute of the rest of your life. Imagine my saying that to you. Okay, I'm going to say that to you today. I'm going to give you the formula. I'm going to give it to you. You know what most of you are going to do? Sorry for insulting you in advance, okay? But if you're anything, if you're anything like the audiences I've had till now, you know what most of you are going to do? You're saying, stop it! Don't tell me! Stop it! Don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And you don't even have to take that on faith. I'm going to prove it to you. You're going to prove it to me before the end of today. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun. You watch. You don't want it. 6 months ago, or roughly 6 months ago, last summer, I was in St. Louis, Missouri, giving a workshop, kind of a weekend workshop. There was a priest there who came to see me. He said, you know, I accept every single word you've said over these 3 days, every single word of it. And you know why? Not because I've done what you encouraged us to do, to cut and rub and scrape and analyze. He says, no. He said about 3 months ago, I assisted an AIDS victim on his deathbed. And the man told me the following. He said, Father, 6 months ago, the doctor told me I had 6 months to live. How right he is, because how right he was. The man was dying, see. He said I had exactly 6 months to live, and I believed him. And you know something, Father? These have been the 6 happiest months of my whole misspent life. Happiest. In fact, I've never been happy till these 6 months. I discovered happiness. He said, as soon as the doctor told me that, I dropped tension, pressure, anxiety, hope, and fell not into despair but into happiness at last. And the priest said, you know, many is the time I've been reflecting on the words of that man. He said, when I heard you this weekend, I thought, the guy's come alive again. You're saying exactly what he said. Here's another guy who had it, who found it. You're Christians, most of you. You know, I'm accustomed to talking to groups that are not Christians either, and I generally take the Quran. Philippians. For whatever the situation I find myself, you've got it right here, the formula's here. Well, he doesn't tell you how to do it, that I shall supply. No, it's right here too. The formula's here too. How to do it is here too. But listen to what he says. For whatever the situation I find myself in, I have learned to be self-sufficient. What do you mean self-sufficient? You're not vulnerable. Yeah, there it goes. You'll be attacking me before the end of today. Yeah. For whatever the situation I find myself in, I have learned to be self-sufficient. I am experienced in being brought low, and I have known what it meant to have abundance. I have learned how to cope with every circumstance, how to eat well or to go hungry, to be well provided for or to do without. I have learned to cope with every circumstance, how to eat well or to go hungry, to be well provided for or to do without. A little earlier he says, rejoice always, rejoice in the Lord. Again I say it, rejoice. I think of Ramchandra in Calcutta. I think of that AIDS victim in St. Louis. That's what he's talking about. I had read it all my life and had never understood it. I mean, it was staring at me, staring me in the face, didn't grasp it.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Lydia. He died June 1st, 1987 in New York City. Appreciate it. So you can see from what Tony's sharing with us there, the secret is not really a secret. I mean, one of the scriptures he quotes often is Mark 8, 34, 35, which is Jesus saying, deny yourself, lose your life. That's the secret. That's the formula. But that happens through awareness. So I'd like to do now, and Russ and Lisa, if you could help me, is send you into some small groups. I think we have about 15 people. So maybe groups of 4 or 5, I don't know, however you'd like to do it, Lisa and Russ. And I gave you a few questions, and Lisa just put them in the chat right now. And you can go anywhere. You can use one of these questions, or you can just start talking about something that came up for you. But what's one of your attachments is a big question. What illusion do you identify with the most? What is just getting in the way of you being enlightened or just happy? Or just what strikes you about the spirituality of Tony DeMello? And what questions do you have? So enjoy, please go off into your groups, cut and scrape and rub. And I'll see you back here in about 15, 16 minutes, okay? Enjoy. Good. Well, let's open it up. Anything you'd like to share as we wrap up our first session on Tony DeMello?
Does he offer any criteria for thinning out our attachments?
For doing what to our attachments?
For thinning out our attachments.
Thinning out.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Reducing them.
Reducing them. Yes.
Yeah, just seeing them. That's all he says. And it's kind of ruthless in a way. I mean, it is also delightful if you're simply aware at any point, is that being the kind of pure awareness I was talking about. That's when you really get in touch with the delight of life, and you can enjoy things as they come. But that's really the only antidote for attachments.
Mhm.
And in that open field of awareness, to see things, to see, not only to see the actual attachment, whatever the object of attachment is, whether it's, a person or your car or some experience or some way you handle things. It could be really a multitude of things. It's to see your reactions around that. When, for instance, I feel like I'm going to be late somewhere, what are the feelings that come up inside?
Mhm.
Because then again, you can see the more you are able to see that, understand is his word. The more you're able to understand your negative feelings and your attachments, the freer you'll be.
LJ, do you think that from his perspective, you can love something but not be attached to it?
Very much. Yeah, very much. So the question, Peg, that you opened with about, love and letting go, he would say that love is a matter of seeing. And in a way, love is a matter of, it's not really something you do, it's something you kind of unleash. So he says happiness is already within you. But he says you could call it God, you could call it love, you could call it any number of things. It's not just the feeling of happiness. It's infinite happiness, we might say.
Right.
Infinite joy, which is also infinite love.
Mhm.
So he says, really, it's kind of, I don't think he uses this example, but I'll use it. It's kind of like the sunlight streaming into your living room. It can be blocked by a shade or by a drape, or by a person or by a TV or something you put in the way. But the sunlight is still there, beaming in. Love is still there. It's just a matter of taking everything out of the way. And that's what he would call your attachments.
Yeah, because I think it's an important to distinguish between I can love someone but not be attached to them or attached to that love of them.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that what agape is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, but I
It's-
think it's an important distinction because
Yeah.
you also have to let people go. If you
There's a
love
kind
them.
of dependency in attachment.
Very much. Yeah. Yeah. If you find you're experiencing a codependency, that's definitely an attachment. Yes.
Mhm. With a
And
person.
that's, you ever hear the term, I may have used this in previous years, so I apologize if I did. Do you ever hear the term helicopter parent?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's attachment, all right. Yes,
that's
indeed.
attachment. It's like, no, son, you have to follow in my footsteps. He can kind of live his own life. Here I think he'd say love is more letting people be themselves and also letting them deal with themselves, which is actually an act of love for yourself, because all too often, don't we do this? I mean,
Yeah.
I do this all the time. I let other people's feelings determine how I'm going to feel. And he says, that's a dynamic of attachment. And is that love? I mean, let's ask that question. Is that really what love is? And then let me just adjust myself to this situation so I don't make this person upset. I mean, we do that all the time to each other. I don't think that's love. That's us more acting out our attachments. I'm too afraid of losing this person. Let me just not talk about this problem because I'm too afraid of losing this person. Yeah, that's codependency. And that's exactly the kind of thing Anthony DeMello is talking about. He says, we think we need something to be happy. I think I cannot be happy unless this person is in my life.
Yeah.
And come hell or high water, I'm going to keep him here somehow, right? Yeah.
Well, this last week, I had a thing I heard from some friends that one of the things that the conservative political group had a major group within it that said Jesus was the Messiah. And I listen to these things. I don't necessarily believe everything that I hear. And so I was going down the street with one of my walks, and I was walking by the house that had a Youngkin sign still up in front of it. And I said, I'm going to ask this person if that's something that they know about. And so I said, well, just a minute, please. And I explained what it was. And I asked the question, and they said no. And I said, well, I didn't think so, but I wanted to just check with somebody who was in the family, so to speak. And then they presumed that I was a conservative, and I said, well, I'm not actually in that group, but I don't think I don't despise them either. You know, I respect everybody, and I didn't go on to say that one time I was a Republican and it was this way and that way and all, but I did not tell them all of the things, all of the bad things about the Republican Party that I feel when I go through the evaluation process. I mean, I didn't tell them all the things I didn't like about the Democratic Party either. You know, so it isn't like it was this party or that party. In either party, I've got a list of negatives, but I didn't do that. And that's what you're talking about, I think, when you're saying, well, you back off from saying these things. On the other hand, saying those things would merely have been offensive to them and shut them down and made them miserable. And what's the point of that? I don't see that. Mm-hmm. So I see the point of respecting the fact that they have a complex world that they live in and that they have this conservative view. I'm glad they have a way of coming to it. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't agree with it, but it doesn't mean I despise it. It just means I don't despise them. I don't despise their view. I just don't agree with it. And I don't think I need to make an enemy by baiting them just because I don't happen to agree with it. And you know, like I said, I have to tell them all the things that are wrong with the Republican Party. I have to tell them all the things that are wrong with the Democratic Party and the Communist Party and the Green Party. There are all negative things in all of these places. And in fact, there are positive things in all of these places too. So,
yeah. If only that was the more mainline view in politics.
I have something to add. Julian of Norwich is one of my favorite mystics. And, you know, I think she's the one that says all is well, all is well. Mm-hmm. And so when I was listening to what he was saying tonight, and he even mentioned her at the very beginning, I was thinking this was helping me to understand that better. You know, because I've often pondered, what does she mean all is well? I mean, it is a very broad statement to make. And I've often used it when I'm upset, and I'll just say, okay, all is well, all is well. But I don't know until now that I fully really understood what that meant. And mm-hmm. I think he put some meat on the bones for me tonight on that. In terms of, you know, letting go when you go into your contemplation. One of the things, you know, instead of just maybe clearing your mind and centering on a word, that maybe a process to begin with would be to do some of the things that he said, to identify the attachments and to let them go one by one by one. Maybe that is another way to get into the contemplative state. And,
surely. Yeah. And even, you know, whatever your practice is, just to become aware of what's going on inside you is likely a really good prelude to Vespers, Sunday services, centering prayer, you know, Zen, whatever your practice is, just to become, you know, because I have often sat down in meditation and I'm still dealing with the crap I was just thinking about or reacting to, right? So, and in those moments, I'm definitely not feeling like all is well. So it serves us well, I think, to do that, to sit, and even from time to time throughout the day, stop what you're doing, take a deep breath, and just do a check-in. What's going on inside me right now? Because it also helps you root yourself in the present moment. The only time there ever is, right, is the moment. And that's why don't worry about, do I need to keep doing this for the rest of my life, or I've wasted my life until now? Those kinds of thoughts are useless. It's only about now. And for DeMello, it's only about being aware right now. And so any little bit of awareness is going to help. Any little bit.
I have a question for you. So, and maybe this is an attachment, but when you do this and you get to the place that he would call, I guess, enlightenment of some kind, do you become a truly passive person?
No.
Truly passive person, you said?
No.
I mean, okay, so, but if you don't let things get to you and you let go of everything and you don't hold on to anything, you're passive.
I don't think it's a
He
letting
would
go.
say-
I think it's an
Yeah.
awareness in every situation, awareness of how, yeah, I don't think that we let the attachments go. We're just aware of them and not letting them drive us every moment of every day. And I
Yeah,
don't, I'm
I'm sorry, go ahead.
confused about this, but I'm confused about it.
Well, I think he would say attachments are kind of like calcified energy. And
Well put.
so probably just being aware is letting go. Actually introduces a little bit of space and pause and even detachment, but it releases energy, oddly enough. He would say, be careful that you don't swing into action over something right away. Yeah, and you may, and we do it all the time. But when you do swing into action, at least at the end, a little bit of awareness to see, why did I do that? It might prevent me from acting. And at least it's been my experience, sometimes it does take a tremendous amount of energy to not act about something. And on the other hand, it doesn't take a whole lot of energy for me to do something at times. But that's all just putting it in context. I don't think it will ever make you a totally passive person, as if you're just kind of a slug. Although I tend to prefer laziness, and that kind of sounds good to me. It's not really the point. It's more to free you to live. And he
To
would say, no, to
respond.
enjoy life.
To
Yeah, to
respond instead of to react.
Yes,
Whatever
precisely. But yeah,
is coming in.
yeah, to respond to life instead of react. Here's another way of putting it, Holly. That's your name, right, Holly?
Yeah.
Flowing with life instead of kind of working your way against it.
So, like, say that again. Flowing.
Flowing with life, going with the
Flowing with
flow of
life.
life
Okay.
instead of fighting it, resisting it, and even holding on to it. Yeah.
Right.
But still living, still very much living. I mean, he actually kind of amends what the Buddha says. The Buddha says, drop desire. And Tony says, well, no, desire is a good thing. It's more about dropping attachments. And it frees up, actually, this has been my experience. It frees up my desire. And I feel a little bit more alive and a little bit more full of energy to do, to put it in Christian words, to do God's good work,
I would say that Jesus provides a model for this because he has no attachments in his life.
Well put.
And on the cross, Jesus is there with not attached to anything, but his life is full of action and doing stuff. So there's something there if we consider ourselves, Delio says, we're followers of the way of Jesus. And the way of Jesus is to not be attached to anything, but to be full of love. But there's a lot of action involved in that way.
Yeah. You know, I know this is a really good conversation, but I think in respecting people's time, it's time to bring it to a close and start up next Monday.
Oh,
At
okay.
7:30, we're gonna have another round. So LJ, we get to hear you again, and we'll come back with our questions, and we'll have sat with them for a while without attachment to them. At least having had some practice.
Practice
so
that
LJ, I wanna
awareness.
thank you for a really wonderful
Change
session.
Zoom room.
So
Excuse
what
me?
we'll do is it is the same link every week, but we'll go ahead and send out on Fridays. We'll resend that message just so that it's easy to put your fingers on when Monday comes around.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
In front of the 500 emails we get all the time. But anyway,
Good to see you again, Lisa. Good to see you again, Lisa.
Hi, Barb.
Thank
Good
you.
to see everybody.
Ed,
Thank you
good
all
to
for
see
being
you
here.
again.
all right, you all take care.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
next
Thanks for
Monday.
coming.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
LJ.
All right, bye-bye.